All right, so
I have to give you a little bit of credit for this.
Yeah, we can overdub it later. Just
I
Had any crazy stories about? Oh wait, no, I do. I got robbed at gunpoint, mugged.
Looking for me, but I ain't checking for them. No.
sleazy real estate guys, but all right, so another episode of the EP podcast here. We have a little bit of a different format from the different format we just recently enrolled into the podcast. What we have is, you know how on Instagram, when you scroll through things, you can save things on different albums. What we did is we put together an album with different headlines we've been seeing throughout the last week or two, and we figured why not just sit down and just go over them one by one and see where it goes. There's no script, no nothing. We're just essentially going to go, as they say, off the dome. But before we do that, if you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, turn on the notification bell for any more episodes that are to come in the future. With me, I have the one and only co-host of the EP podcast, Arthur Hannig. Arthur, how are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's very nice to see you on here again. This is now your fifth time on here, man. Good for you, man. Well, as you know, we're going to go over topics. We have the TV in front of us, and we're just going to go through them together. Just to give you guys an idea of the kind of topics, it's all over the place. There's no specific format or anything. We have topics like 7 things people waste the most money on. We have things like you could now sleep in a Ferrari museum with Airbnb. Things like Microsoft and Coca-Cola sign a 1.1 billion AI deal. So, should we dive into that?
Which one do you want to start with?
All right, let's see. Mini, mighty, mo. We could start here. Boom. 7 things. And, you know, when I edit these things, I will include these, you know, articles or whatever you want to post, and then you guys can review them yourself. So, this is a post by Wealth, the Instagram page, followed by many. I want to say a few million, if not. So, 7 things people waste the most money on. Starting from 7, unused gym membership. Why do you think that is?
Or everyone wants to say that they belong to a gym to make it look good and the effort of they're going to get to the gym one day. But in actuality, most people and gyms bank on this know that you sell the membership. Most likely people only come for the first 2 weeks of January. And then after that, it's just easy money for the next 11 months.
Absolutely. Look, I'm somewhat guilty of this myself. Not that point, but the fact that what I was going to add on to that was that some people have more than one gym membership.
I don't understand that one.
Yeah, well,
why do you need more than one
it's
gym?
a thing I got into this year, right? So I'm a member at 2 gyms, right? One is Edge in Christiana, who that now has a Pike Creek location. I'm also a member at Planet Fitness, which has various locations, and the Planet Fitness is super close. It's like half the distance from the Edge one, but the Edge one has different kinds of equipment that I like to use. So, but one of the things that is happening now is now I have 2 gym membership expenses when I'm really only using one. So I definitely fall on this kind of spectrum here.
Do you actively go to both gyms?
I do not. I actively go to one. Well, when you say actively, it's a specific one thing. So if I had to choose one or the other, it would be the Planet one. So, but I do love me the good sauna at Edge. So there's that. They have the sauna, which I really like, but Planet Fitness has the red light therapy, which I really do enjoy. And the specific Planet Fitness I go to is at the Riverfront location. So when I'm done, you good?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just adjusting with my chair.
Okay. Sorry. No, you're good. So I'm at the Planet Fitness over at the Riverfront location. So when I'm done lifting, I'm able to just go for a walk at the Riverfront or go running, which is great. It has a great, you know, path and everything like that. So I definitely fall into this unused gym membership thing. So, you know, guilty as charged. The next one is lottery and gambling. This is number 6 of the 7. Lottery and gambling. Now, I don't do scratch offs or any other forms of lotteries.
Mhm.
And gambling, I've never gambled in my life. Well,
Never?
would you call a casino like doing a slots machine gambling?
That's gambling.
Okay. Well, then I guess I have done it, but probably not to the extent of doing it to
Well,
be
how much money did you put in the slot machines?
like a couple dollars.
So you didn't put in more than you could afford to lose.
So what do you mean by that? Could like more than you could afford to lose?
It's an entertainment thing. I mean, you go to Atlantic City, you go to Vegas, the machines are there, the tables are there. You throw $5 on red or green at roulette. You win, great. You lose, doesn't alter your life at all. It was just fun experience. You get to chalk it up to being entertainment.
Okay. I mean, I know that the sports gambling industry has just been taken off in the past few years. I think it's a sports gambling industry, and specifically what has also been taken off these past few years is betting on these apps. So things like FanDuel, things like Fanatics, like stuff like that.
Yeah, I haven't heard anyone say they've won big off of those. These are all rigged and designed to keep your money.
I have one friend who actually lives off of it, bought his first home off of it. But at the end of the day, gamble is a gamble, and sure, you could argue that investing in itself is a gamble and that no returns are guaranteed. You can make that argument, but I guess at that point it's a track record thing.
Investing is taking calculated, educated risk.
Well, can't you argue that in sports gambling, if you really, really know whether it's a team or the player and their statistics, and you analyze that, doesn't that make it a little bit more calculated?
How many people do you know that?
Well, me personally, no, but that's because I'm not in that space. But I'm sure some people will probably make that argument.
I guess the argument's there to be made, but at the end of the day, I hear more people become millionaires from the stock exchange than I do from gambling.
Right. So that's why I think like it really comes when you get to that point of the argument, it becomes like, okay, well, who has the longer track record? The S&P 500 or Fanatics or FanDuel. So there's that. All right, next on the list is this is a different list. So next on the list in number 5 comes here's a good one. Fancy coffee. This is like a thing with just about every American. They start off their day, they want to pull up at Dunkin' Donuts, a Starbucks, and you're spending at least if you're at McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts, you spend at least like $3 for coffee. Now, when you start working up the Starbucks range, I think like the bottom price is like $4. I could be wrong on this, so don't come at me, Starbucks fans over here. Like $4. So and mind you, I don't really use Starbucks. The only time I would use Starbucks now is if I get like a gift card for it. Right. And even then it's like you're spending like $4, $5, $6 on Starbucks. Tell me about this coffee expense, fancy coffee expense.
Well, first of all, Starbucks in general, their pricing model is to be the most expensive coffee in town. Every time they would go and open up a new location, they would scout out the area. They'd go to every coffee place, see what the most expensive cup of coffee was. And then when they opened, they were more expensive. Specifically, they wanted to be the most expensive cup of coffee in town, and it's worked for them.
That's interesting. Do you think, how similar is that to luxury clothing brands? Where I think I've seen something recently that one of the luxury ones, maybe owned by Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, the designer conglomerate.
Right.
I think one of the brands came out with like a designer tape that was going for like hundreds of dollars and is sold out within hours of coming out to light. You think it's similar to that with coffee? What Starbucks is trying to do?
Coffee is a little bit different. You're talking about a price ticket item of $4, $5, $6, $7, $8. So that's something that you can justify in your head that I can afford to spend that type of money. The designer clothing, that's a whole different market because you're putting out a whole lot more money than just a couple of bucks.
And to that point of just a couple bucks, I got curious as you were talking about that. I looked up, what does the average American spend a year on coffee? According to ABC News here, it says data show to indicate that the average worker spends around $1,100 a year on coffee. Now,
so that's about $4 a day.
$4 a day, which exactly comes out to like what we were talking about, that $3-4 range, right?
You can afford to splurge. You can justify that you can afford to splurge $4 a day.
Now, do you think to some people it's like, so what? It's $1,100. What do you have to say to that?
It's $1,100. I mean, if you could cut that in half, could you make coffee at your house and take it with you? Could you get coffee at the office? Like, is there a way that you could cut that expense down? You'd also get some more time back in your day if you didn't have to swing by Starbucks at their peak hour every morning, too.
Yeah, that is true. And and me personally, like I remember when I was in Dell Tech back in 2017 through 2020, so 4 years ago at most. I used to go to this coffee shop that didn't survive the pandemic. But I used to love going to this coffee shop before the pandemic called Loma, and the coffee would be going for like $3-4 a pop. But I would specifically start going on Tuesdays when coffee was like half off, and it's almost like eliminating a behavior where we start regularly, and then are you cutting down specifically just 1 day a week? And then ultimately I ended up just going in there just for the ambiance. I would just go in there, get a cup of water, which I know, a lot business owners are probably not happy that I'm in there taking up their space, but
Wonder why they didn't survive.
occasionally you splurge, get a little get a little bit of an avocado
All those
toast.
water sales just couldn't keep them afloat.
Yeah. So, damn, did I just expose myself? Sorry, Loma. Lawsuit comes in knocking the next day. You've been served, not coffee. So, yeah, no, I get it. It's a
Actually,
big
they
expense.
lose money on you because they're out the price of the cup or washing the glass.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're costing them money every time you walk in.
Well, and here, let's look at this, right? Let's put this into perspective for younger people, right? Because younger people are the ones who actually, it's like middle class America that does this mostly on a regular basis. I would say, because when you're dealing with middle class America, you're dealing with like corporate workers, people that are used to their coffee and their routine every day. They're the ones that typically spend it. But for the sake of the argument, people that say you're 19, 20, and you're getting coffee every day on your way to school or on your way to work, and some people do it twice a day. So now you're spending that $1,100. It costs for a Roth IRA to max out is like 15,500, 5,500, 6,000 a year. Is that what it comes out to?
I'm not sure what it's gone up. It might be 7,000.
It might be 7,000. So
2024.
7,000. Like, so in a couple of years, 3 years, 4 years, that's like something that could be making you money. Whereas here, it's going essentially nowhere. And it's just like it's a big behavior thing. But that's the big one, coffee. And look, it's only number 5. I wonder how worse it's going to get from here. So next one at number 4. Oh shit! Yeah, dining out. Dining out. What do you? I'll let you start us off on this one.
Dining out's always been more expensive. It's much cheaper to stay home and make a dinner there, end up with leftovers, but it's work and it takes time and it's not as convenient of just walking into a restaurant, sitting down, relaxing, and somebody else doing all of the cooking, all of the prep work, all the cleaning, and you just go home and you don't have a kitchen to clean up. It is convenience, but the prices are escalating.
Yeah, especially in today's world. Like, I think, and I saw an article not too while ago that all these food delivery apps have gone down because the food has gotten more expensive, and people are opting more to eating at home for that reason. And even then, when you're doing groceries, they're still expensive. So it comes down to which one are we going to choose of the lesser of the two. But 100%, this is like right around the same space of coffee. People are just eating out all the time. I remember I used to be a big McDonald's eater back in high school. I would get McDonald's all the time on my way back home. The good old double quarter pounder meal with a Coke, medium, sometimes large if I really felt like it, if I was having a good day. And that adds up. That adds up. Not to mention what McDonald's costed back in the day, like call it 2017. No, 2017. Or even it's called even 2017 as a basis point is not at all what it costs now. Like, you're spending at least $3 more on a double quarter pounder meal, if not 4, than you were before. So,
Well, you don't dine out anywhere near as much as you used to.
no.
You used to spend, what, a third of your income on
Yeah.
food?
Yeah.
Not
And
at the supermarket, at fast food and restaurants?
I think it might be a couple of things contributing to that. I mean, one, the fact that I'm older and I'm appreciating eating at home more than I do eating out. And two, the fact that I have more financial responsibilities. So as a result, it's like every time I get paid, the dollar's already tied up to something, right? It's not like I'm getting paid now. It's just like money to spend. When in high school, it's like, you're getting paid, you're not thinking of shit unless, you're in a household that teaches you otherwise. But yeah, dining out is a big expense. Next one at number 3, late fees. America is racking up the most amount of credit card debt that it ever has been. I don't know the number at the top of my head, but this one's a big one. This was a big
Oh,
one.
it just hit a new high. Like
yeah.
1.6 trillion being
Yeah.
carried over in credit card debt.
Start us here, Arthur. Why do people? When do late fees happen? When do fees with credit cards happen? Because there is people out there with a mindset that you need to with credit cards is you need to pay something, right?
You need to pay.
That there's a fee along with owning a credit card, right? So just to justify that.
I've never paid a fee for a credit card.
Okay, you want to unpack that a little bit?
Credit card company wants me to use their credit card. I sign up for it. They send it to me. There's no charge. Every time I use the credit card, they do hit up the merchant that I'm doing this purchase with, and they take a fee from them. I don't know what the fee is. I would imagine it's somewhere between 2.5% to 3% on average. And that's how they make their money. They make their money off of me making my purchases, and whatever I purchase that month, I pay in full at the end of the month, and I don't carry a balance, and I don't get hit with late fees, and I don't have interest charges. And in fact, I actually started a couple of years ago, I started taking it a step further. Every couple of days, I look at all my credit card purchases, and I move the money from my checking account into my high yield savings account that's attached to my credit card. So then the money just sits there until the credit card's due, and then by the time the credit card's due, it just automatically takes it right out of my high yield savings. So
you're earning interest on your expense on top of what your credit card benefits give you.
Yeah, so I'm putting money in savings. So every time I spend the money, I take it right out of my checking account and put it into a savings account, and a high yield savings account. So I get the benefit of that money sitting there for a couple of weeks. And then when the credit card's due, they just take it right out of the high yield savings account and back to a zero balance and start again.
So while you were explaining that, I looked up what credit card debt is at right now. And the Federal Reserve Bank of New York is saying that credit card balances are now currently at 1.13 trillion outstanding.
Okay.
And then we look at what the average consumer holds a balance of. And the CNBC article states the average balance for an individual is $6,501. $6,501.
Overall average balance. But is that outstanding balance, or is that... See, this is where I always want to dig into the details a little bit deeper. Is that just how much money is currently charged on credit cards, or is that...
It's like they open their account, and it's like they open their account, and that's the balance that's there.
Okay.
For the average American.
But that also takes into account the people that have every intention of paying off their balance in full. So that's not revolving debt. That's not debt that's not being paid on the credit card. Like, that's going to be a different number.
But even like to that 1 point whatever trillion amount, it just means that people have on that basis of the argument, it just means that people have a balance bigger and bigger, the biggest it's ever been currently per person.
Yes. But expenses have also gone up. So you also have to look at that the prices at the supermarket, prices at the supermarket are higher. So if you're putting your groceries on the credit card every month, you're not, what you used to pay a couple of years ago is less than what you're paying now for the same grocery order. So yes, that number is always going to increase. It's just the bigger question is how much revolving debt are Americans carrying on the card each month?
So pay your balances every month. At the end of the day, it's not your money, and don't spend money you don't have. So there's that. Myself included. All right. So next. First, we covered unused gym memberships. Now we're talking unused subscriptions.
Yep.
This one's a big one. Look, they're all big ones, but this one in particular, I remember when Netflix first came around, and, first they were easing off the whole, now you could just go to, online, you could order the DVD and then send it back to us.
Yep.
And then they became fully on digital. And then they got rid of the blockbusters of the world. And then Disney came around with Disney Plus. And then things like HBO Max started coming out with their own version of it. And then Paramount Plus. And then the things kept adding up and adding up. Now, the competition increased, which anytime competition increases is typically good for consumers because it lowers prices. But at the same time, it's essentially, for me, I looked at it as almost like a big reset, because is back in the day, people were using Comcast, Dish Network, DirecTV, whatever it was, and they would pay X amount of X amount of money a month for all these channels they wouldn't use. It's almost like the exact same thing is happening now, just with streaming networks. What are your thoughts on this?
It's gone too far. I mean, everybody is creating their own platform, their own streaming service. And at one point in time, I know people that said, hey, we dropped our cable package because we got tired of paying the $150 a month for it. So we picked up all the streaming services, and like 7-8 different streaming services, the cost combined was $50-$60 a month. So like, hey, we get all the streaming services and we're saving $90 a month. That made sense. Now the streaming services are all raising their prices to be over $20 a month on average between them. And, it comes down to how much time is there in the day? How much time do you have available to watch television and a movie? Do you need to have multiples? And the ultimate answer is there really isn't. Like, I understand you join one service for a little while, and if you get tired of that, drop it and then try a different one for a period of time. But belonging to multiples at the same time, it's really hard to justify belonging to 7 or 8 different streaming services simultaneously, because you can't physically get your money's worth out of them each month.
And these fluctuate anywhere from like $5 to like $15, because all these streaming platforms, they have like different packages, like their basic, their standard, and their premium, and it typically comes down to like the amount of people that can share the account, or whatever the case is, the amount of people that can use the account, because that's something they really try to narrow down on, like just a year or two ago.
Oh yeah, Netflix did their massive crackdown on account sharing.
Right, and ultimately, people, I think, are paying more for that than they were for cable.
No.
What was cable? What? Okay, so what were people typically paying for cable a month?
People were typically paying $100+ for cable a month. Like, it's like the very basic package of cable that you got limited channels, would be something like $50 a month. But to get the channels that you really were interested in, that you used to be able to have all the time, then that started to become like $100 a month. But then you could add on and do, get the movie channel packages and things like that, which people would do, or they may not. But at the same point, it's $100 and some a month, and that started escalating. So then when these streaming services came out, that was great. People were able to start dropping the movie packages from their cable bill and then just have cable, and you supplement with the streaming services. But now, streaming services are starting to price themselves into the same market as the cable companies, and the question is that sustainable, and do you need to pay that much for entertainment?
Okay, so let's see here. This is a Forbes Home article.
Mm-hmm.
Top streaming statistics. Americans spend an average of 3 hours and 9 minutes a day streaming digital media.
Streaming digital media.
Digital, which is subscription services.
Right, but does that also include time on the cell phone streaming? Like,
you can still use that.
But like
those
getting lost on Facebook videos and YouTube and Instagram and so on, is that all part of that 3 hours, or is this specifically on the television?
Well, streaming, you're getting, when it says top streaming statistics, you're getting into streaming platforms. Social media and streaming platforms are two different things.
Okay.
Now, people doom scroll all the time, which is what you're referring to.
Okay.
So and here's another one. 99% of all U.S. households pay for at least one or more stream service. 99%, which I guess is just really shows that the shift from one form of watching television or entertainment or whatever you want to call it to the new world, which is digital now. Netflix dominates as the most subscribed to video streaming service with 260.28 million subscribers
Worldwide.
Okay,
just
so let's say
there's only 300 and some million Americans, so I just want to make sure we were.
Hold on, let's look. What's the like the most basic price for Netflix? $6.99. So it says standard with ads is $6.99. Netflix has ads?
On their lower level tiers, they do have ads.
So 260.8 for 28 times, call it 7. So was that billion? 1.8 billion? I thought so. 260.28 million subscribers,
Mhm.
and let's assume that they all have the minimum one, which is $6.99. Let's call it $7.
Yeah, that would be 1.8 billion.
So they're bringing in 1.8 billion alone a year, assuming everybody has the lowest one, which is not the realistic thing. Some people pay for more a year just on that 1.6, and now they also have implemented games on their platform. So I don't know if you knew that Netflix has like games on their platform now.
News to me.
So there's that too. But yeah, like it's a real thing. It's like they've shifted the whole market. But that was unused subscriptions, and that was number 2. And now we're going to number 1. Number 1, impulse buying. When it says impulse buying, you know what I think of? Amazon.
Okay.
So, because people don't go to the mall as much as they used to, where a lot of the impulse buying happens. So that leads me to think where people are.
Does it elaborate more on impulse buying or just
No, this is
impulse
just
buying?
the headline stuff.
Okay.
That's social media. Social media is just headlines. But when you think of impulse buying, where it's like you go to somewhere, and think of what, like places like the grocery store, places like call it Trader Joe's, which is I guess is also
Right,
a
but
grocery
if you'll
store.
what I think of impulse buying is of things like where this has always been the case. You go to the supermarket and at checkout, they have all these little last minute things that they're trying to entice you to buy. They put the candy bars right there because you think, oh, let me grab a candy bar, it'd be a nice snack. When you go to the gas station, I think of that as impulse buying, that you go to fill up your car and then you walk into the convenience store, and all gas stations have convenience stores now. That didn't used to be the case. And you can grab a soda and a candy bar or Gatorade and a bag of chips or something like that. So I think of that as being impulse buying. And now when you go to other stores as well, I've noticed that going into clothing stores, they have candy bars right there at the register, and they have soft drinks and places you wouldn't expect it to be, and there it is.
Yeah.
You go to Lowe's or Home Depot, they right there at checkout, they have drinks and snacks.
But okay, so you're also like in the kind of like the older mindset, right? Like me as the one who is like in like the newer age, when I think of impulse buying, I think of Amazon. The reason being is you go looking for one thing, next thing you know, you're gonna suggest another thing. It's like the same thing, but digitally, you're checking out, and all of a sudden you're getting a recommendation for something else. I was like, oh snap, I'll get that too, and I'll get that too. Next thing you know, and here I would say it's worse than as you the examples you were listing, because
it's targeted to you. They know exactly what you're looking for, what will entice you, and how to get you to spend a little bit more. So the trick to that is you throw it in your cart, and you don't make the purchase that day.
Yep.
You wait a day or two, and then when look at your car and analyze, do I really need that? Am I really going to use that?
Well, but that's the thing, right? The responsible thing to do is to sit on it, right? But Amazon is so good that you'll put it in your cart, close out the app, or go to a different app, and then you'll get a notification from them. It's like, hey, you left something in your cart. Something like that. So it's like, it's like it's on your ear.
Ignore it.
You say that. You see, here's where we need to get back to planet Earth, right? Planet Earth, people don't always make the logical decision. They're typically, because the logical decision would mean doing the smarter thing, and the smarter thing sometimes is doing the harder thing because it has a longer term benefit. People like the quick pleasure, the feeling of checking out and being told, order has been fulfilled, you get in the next day.
And I was always told that to eliminate impulse buying, for every purchase you're going to make, for every $10 that purchase is going to be, you stop and you think about that for an hour. So if you want to buy something that it's going to cost you $100, you think about that for 10 hours. And if you still want that at 10 hours, then it's worth getting. If it's not, then it's an impulse purchase and you don't need it, nor do you really want it.
Okay. So that was the top 7 for where people spend the most money on. So what topic do you want to move into next, Arthur? We have, let's see. I guess this one's interesting, right? Let's talk about this because we covered it on the last episode. Google has this is another wealth post. Google has laid off hundreds of U.S. employees, is now hiring from India and Mexico. Now this is very interesting because we literally covered less than a week ago, or maybe a week ago, yeah, a week ago to be exact, where Google was issuing their first dividend payout in history, in Google history. Now
Yeah.
they're laying off all these employees. Why do you think this is?
It's not a good look for them. You announce that you're going to start a dividend and then you turn around and lay off part of your workforce. I understand that obviously you're going for cheaper labor when you're saying you're going to India and Mexico, but was this your plan, and the reason you did the dividend was to try to soften the blow that you were going to make this move? It's not a good look.
So not only did they get, because dividends dividends from the companies that issue them is essentially like a tax play, right?
No, it's sharing the profits with the owners.
Right, but it's beneficial tax wise to the company, right?
You're distributing the profits, you're sharing the money. I mean, yes, it's what you're as a company you're supposed to be.
So there's the one angle, but then there's the other angle that you said is now that they're getting cheaper labor.
Yes.
Right. But also, like, the bigger thing is that now the cost of living overall has gone up. And it really goes to show you that people at the end of the day, they just follow the money. Right. And
It's always been the case.
right. And what's happening is the bar is getting set higher and higher from employees. They want more and more and more simply because everything's becoming more expensive. And as a result, because companies essentially follow the money at the end of the day, they'll go where they could, lower their overhead and increase their spread, essentially. And the easiest way to do that is by laying off, salaries and wages and going places where the cost of living is substantially lower. Places like India and Mexico. Now they're getting a lot of the same work done, especially with things like that sped up this way of working, the pandemic. People just working virtually. And it was just like a thing a lot of people do. They call them a virtual assistants. Is they'll hire, employees or contractors essentially from other countries like India and Mexico, and they'll be paying for a fraction of what they're paying for an employee here, and still get the same amount of work, if not more, because there's a little bit more of ambition, and you'll find from these other countries, right? They're a little less, for lack of a better term, comfortable.
Well, the other part is this philosophy can work for a company like Google because it's technology that they're outsourcing the labor for. We've already learned through the pandemic that when we are dependent upon other countries to send us products and we shut down the borders, that it's a problem getting product in, and that's what caused the spike in the price of cars, that there was a shortage of cars and the demand was increasing and we weren't getting product because we were dependent upon cars coming from other countries or parts for the cars coming from other countries so they could be made here. And that wasn't a good look for the United States.
Well, overall, we're talking on a macro perspective. Let's dive into the micro perspective on this, right? States, how they compete for business is they typically incentivize businesses to come in, either typically like less whatever kind of taxes or whatever the case. You know how Delaware is big on incorporating businesses here because it's just like a great tax play, and majority of the businesses are incorporated to Delaware, right?
Majority of the businesses are incorporated in Delaware, but it's not a tax play. It has to do with the rules for running a business, our judicial system.
Right. And that's how states compete with one another. They give businesses better incentives to come to their state and bring in their people, create more jobs in their state, so their books look better, right?
Yes.
So that's the micro perspective. The macro here is that we're doing the opposite, right? We're de-incentivizing businesses to keep their business in America. So now they're going to places outside of America and providing labor there. And you specifically said that this is a good tech play, right? So I wonder, yes, it's a good tech play. So, people are probably thinking, oh, it's tech, it's other industries outside of tech. But this does cause a threat to a lot of Americans overall. Period. You don't even have to be in the tech space. Like I don't know what just triggered this in my head to look this up, and I was like, I wanted to know what percentage of the S&P 500 is tech stocks. This article right here says that it's probably weighing around 40%. So what happens if 40% of, assuming the worst, 40% of tech stocks, they start shopping elsewhere because they become less and less incentivized to keep their businesses in America? What is the long what damages can that harm in the long term?
Well, it depends upon how it's structured. I mean, if they're moving the operational aspect of it overseas, where it's the routine stuff, that's one thing, because then you're still keeping the ideas and the visionaries and the latest and greatest is still happening over here. And when you free up people to be able to work on that, then that means they can put more time to innovation instead of housekeeping and just keeping the wheels turning.
Okay. I think that ultimately, we need to get our shit together here so we could keep businesses here and creating more businesses here. Because we do want America to be the great nation that, it was before. I still think it is, but, it could be doing better. Which leads me to, when we're talking about jobs, monthly job creations in the U.S., right? April, we have CNBC chart here that we're looking at for looks to be a year and 4 month bandwidth. April being the lowest in comparison to March of last year, almost half. Call it 475,000 jobs created in April 2024, whereas March of 2024, it was, call it 300. Why do you think that is?
All signs are pointing to a contraction in the economy.
Which means what?
We've had rapid growth for quite some time, and it's going to reverse itself, and these are the beginning metrics of those signs happening.
So what does this look like? What is this going to do in the future? You're saying that there's going to be less and less jobs created, or are we going to hit like a plateau?
There's going to be a shift in the market. I think this one is really driven financially right now. Companies are trying to cut back expenses. Cutting back expenses, your biggest expense is employees. So trying to figure out who the key personnel are. If somebody leaves, maybe not refilling their position. If you feel like you're overstaffed, or it could be a little bit later on the payroll, eliminating a couple of jobs. And I'm starting to hear things out there where people are looking for work.
Now I'm curious. Do you think that the ramp up of March had to do anything with end of first quarter?
The entire first quarter, we've been headed this direction. All of these numbers are historical. So when we get a hold of them, the data it's not current. So some of these numbers that we're looking at are actually further back.
Okay.
So that's the hard part, is when we try to do an assessment of all these metrics and we're saying the numbers just came in. Well, the numbers that are being announced may not be for March. It might actually have already happened in February or January, and we're just getting the latest numbers now.
Okay. So let's move on to another one, which just came out a day ago. It's right now, May 3rd. This came out on May 2nd. Second Boeing whistleblower dies after raising safety concerns. It randomly came out that this person had all of a sudden been ill, and then he passes away. We all know what happened with the first one. He came out, next thing you know, he's dead by, they thought it was suicide or something like that?
I'm not.
Was it suicide?
They tried to frame it that he committed suicide.
So it was framed that it was suicide. and now dies of some random illness. So, do you find this a little odd?
It's a little concerning. It's raising some questions, and thank heavens we're in the United States, so it's not like this is going to go under the radar. There's going to be an investigation into this.
You know what the slogan that's going around now, right?
What?
With Boeing? It's if it's Boeing, I ain't going.
Okay.
What do you think that does to a company in terms of market price?
Oh, that slogan would want me to short the stock.
So speaking of stocks, I just pulled up the Boeing stock. At the beginning of the year, Boeing was at $251 a share, rounding down. Boeing is currently sitting at $179. That is a almost 30% cut from what it was at the beginning of the year.
Yep.
And Boeing hasn't been doing it all. Boeing has been going through it since the pandemic. First, it was all the airlines that were struggling because they had a poor, financial, but they have poor books where they didn't have enough cash. So they were struggling, and then the government had to bail them out. But it's almost like Boeing got out of that, and then now they started struggling with all their safety stuff. Like it's like the doors are flying out of the emergency doors are flying off. Whatever the case is, now the whistleblowers, now the second whistleblower.
It was a door, and they tried to make it a wall.
It was a door, and they tried to make it a wall.
It was going to be a door, and then they decided that they didn't want there to be a door there anymore, so they tried to just turn it into a wall, but they didn't do a good job covering up that it used to be a door.
Now, that ain't no joke, because Boeing has been around for a long time.
It has.
Boeing has been around for a long time. One of my professors at Delaware Tech used to work at Boeing. I think it might have been the Boeing over by when you drive over to Philadelphia Airport. There's that big Boeing office. So it makes you wonder, like, because now that makes it easier for who? For companies like Airbus to dominate the market, right? The market share of air flights or whatever it is. So it's weird because now even when we fly, when we travel and all that stuff, that's something I particularly look at. You know, what kind of plane are we flying on? I am very hesitant to get on a Boeing plane. Would you think twice about getting on a plane if it's Boeing?
It depends on which model.
Okay, so what in particular can you get into that?
If I recall correctly, it sounds like it's
737s, right?
Is it the 737?
That's all. Yeah, that's all I'm hearing. 737.
It's the 737 that seems to have issues. Boeing has several other planes, and I haven't heard that we don't hear the issues with them. So
what do you think if you were Boeing right now? If you were the Boeing CEO, and all these safety concerns are coming out, and all these gossips and all these red flags are coming about the company, what would you do?
Well, the airline industry it's one that one mistake, one plane going down, you have to completely go into and alter. Like, I've always been a big proponent of, you don't change your business model over one customer complaint. But in this situation with airline and airline safety, and you have to go right in, dive into what on earth happened and how did it happen and how can you prevent it from ever happening again. It's what you have to do in the airline industry. So yes, as much as I'm a proponent of, you don't alter your business model because you had one customer complain. Unfortunately, if you have a failed product, if one of your planes doesn't perform the way it's supposed to, then it's an investigation. And the government doesn't take this as a joke. When one plane has a crash, they look at it and say, is this really an isolated incident? Okay, the planes can continue to fly. But then when a second plane crashes, they ground the entire fleet of that plane.
Yep. So you're the CEO right now. What's your first move?
You start investigating. You go to the beginning of the product and start going through you do a audit the entire process of the product in production.
Do you think the CEO knows exactly what's going on?
I would hope so.
Do you think the CEO is in on this?
I wouldn't know. I would hope not.
So viewers, let us know in the comments whether you're hesitant or not when you're traveling these days on getting on a Boeing plane, specifically the Boeing 737. But Arthur. We've covered a few topics and wide range of variety here. Thank you so much for this episode once again. I had a good time. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, hit on that notification bell if you haven't already so you don't miss any episodes in the future. And till the next time, bye bye, bye bye, bye bye.